Okay, welcome back, everybody. Thank you so much for coming for this second session in our Orientation Symposium 2025. So right now, we're going to be hearing about securing mental health in the contemporary workplace from Dr. Paulette Duhaney. Dr. Duhaney is a seasoned professional who blends over 20 years of leadership in a family-owned business with a decade of clinical practice as a mental health therapist. Holding a doctorate in marriage and family therapy, she brings both academic depth and practical experience to her work with individuals, teams, and organizations. And passionate about empowering people and facilitating growth, Dr. Duhaney is committed to creating meaningful change that helps individuals fulfill their purpose. She believes in the transformative power of connection, resilience, and purposeful living, principles she applies in both her business and clinical work. Deeply rooted in her faith, she enjoys serving others within the body of Christ, and she values opportunities to connect, encourage, and inspire. Outside of her professional roles, she enjoys reading, traveling, and relaxing with good movies or psychologically rich television shows. So please help me to welcome Dr. Paulette Duhaney to the HRD Graduate Programs Unit at University of the West Indies.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me, and it's a privilege to be here as I share on securing mental health in the contemporary workplace and looking at the role of the HRD professional practitioner in Jamaica. So good afternoon, everyone. I thank you, Olivine, for the invitation to share this presentation. And I have titled my discourse, Securing Mental Health in the Contemporary Workplace, and looking at the role of the HRD practitioner in Jamaica. I found this quote and I thought it was quite apt to, just to start my presentation. It says, life is never made unbearable by circumstances, but only by lack of meaning and purpose. So this quote is by Viktor Frankl, and he's an Australian. He was an Australian psychiatrist and psychotherapist who believed that it's not just about the pressures that people face, but whether they feel their lives and their work have meaning. And so today we're going to explore how those of us in the contemporary Jamaican workplace can support those who are around us so that they can find and fulfill purpose and meaning in their lives. So step back a little with me, and can you imagine spending 1/3 of your life in a single place? And in that place, your sense of purpose, your stress levels, your social connection, and even your physical health are being shaped every day. For most of us, that place is the workplace. And so the question is, what kind of impact is it having on us? Is it a source of support and growth, or a silent drain on our well-being? What kind of impact will you, as a HR professional, bring to your organization in your role as advocate for the well-being of the staff? I have summarized 3 objectives for this presentation. 1, to foster awareness of the mental health issues. 2, to explore some challenges that prevail in managing mental health in the workplace, and to offer some solutions to having healthier and more productive workplaces. And while we don't have the time to unpack every dimension of mental health in the
Sorry, you're muted.
Oh, I'm muted? I was muted all this time?
No, just a while ago.
Okay. We don't have the time to unpack every dimension of mental health in the workplace, but what we do is that we are going to have the opportunity to, what I would say, plant seeds. seeds of awareness, empathy, and action. And that I hope will help, what I hope you will continue to nurture as you step into your role in shaping the future of the Jamaican workforce. So, the contemporary workplace, what has changed? We're just coming out of a pandemic, and I believe that is etched in everybody's mind. COVID-19 has just really changed a lot about how we do life. It has brought mental health challenges to the forefront, and it has exacerbated previous problems and highlight the need for a more comprehensive support system. I would say that today's workplace looks very different from what it did even 10 years ago. Globalization has blurred borders, right? Technology, we have been impacted by technology and hybrid work, and thus the rise of health, just the rise of health awareness. When we think of globalization and the blurring of borders, it really means that Jamaican companies and workers are competing and collaborating on an international stage. Technology has transformed how we work, and it has enabled hybrid arrangements and with constant connectivity. When we think about working from home, we're always it's like we're always at work. While these shifts bring flexibility and opportunity, they also introduce new pressures. So there's a faster pace of work, there's the blurred work boundaries, uh, job opportunity. There are job opportunities that have come up, different job opportunities because of hybrid work. There are new pressures, the faster work, faster pace, blurred work boundaries. There's job insecurity. And in many cases, the rising rate of burnout, anxiety, and depression. Now, the contemporary organization must now navigate not just productivity, targets, and innovation, but also the mental health and resilience of its people. So it's no longer just about the bottom line. We have to think of mental health because it is a real challenge. Because without that, even the best business strategy will falter. So I'm going to look further at how, the benefits, the risk and how has impacted the Jamaican workplace specifically. The benefits that I've found about this thing of globalization, it has brought about increased awareness of mental health. So there have been many global health campaigns. WHO initiatives also have been instituted that have helped to reduce the stigma and increase an understanding of conditions like depression and anxiety. There is greater access to better treatment. And because of this, there's exposure. We now have become exposed to international research and medical innovation, which means improved therapeutic techniques, medication, and diagnostic tools. There's also, we've become used to like telehealth opportunities, where persons who would not normally have access to mental health counseling is now open to them because they simply can pick up their phone and have or their computer and do therapy by telehealth. So we see that there's this cross-border access to mental health professionals via online platforms. And that what that has done is that it has expanded the care options, especially to those in rural areas. Another thing that has come about because of globalization is really just the influence of the workplace policy influence, where we were now privy to global HR trends that push for mental health benefits. There is the employee assistance programs and wellness policies. And then there's a cultural exchange where we're now the cultures of different countries is just at our fingertips. We simply need to pick up our phones and we see how other people in different nations live. So we have the exposure to different cultures that can encourage openness, diversity, and acceptance of mental health discussions. In terms of risk, there we have economic pressures where because we're in a competing globalized world, there can be job insecurity, especially in industries like tourism and manufacturing. There's a brain drain. We're now losing all of our nurses to the US because skilled workers are migrating for better pay. And this can now leave local mental health services understaffed. And there's an increased stress for those who are remaining. In addition to that, there's cultural erosion, the influence of the media that reduce cultural grounding and identity. And this leads to feelings of alienation. There is work and intensification and the pressure to match global productivity standards that in itself leads to burnout, especially in call centers and outsourced industries. We can also look at how westernized beauty and success standards have influenced us and our mental health, in that imported ideals from the media can cause body image issues, low self-esteem, and increased anxiety among our young people. In addition to that, there is a digital overload. Constant social media exposure to global crises and negative news can trigger anxiety and stress. As it pertains to our Jamaican space, we have adapted global best practices to Jamaican cultural context, in that globalization gives us access to proven mental health programs from other countries, right? So we have that now at our fingertips. So for example, the companies can know, if they don't have it already, look at employee assistance program or other wellness frameworks and see how does that work? Will that work for our company? And adapt them to the norms, to the Jamaican norms, right? And see, would it be beneficial for our staff? So for example, if mindfulness techniques might be used to be integrated among persons who may be anxious, for persons who are going through depression. How do we tailor what we learn from places like the US and tailor it to our culture to make it beneficial for our staff? There is the promotion of community-based mental health programs where global models tend to focus on corporate programs, but Jamaica's work culture overlaps heavily with community life. So what we can do in regards to that, we can look at how can we leverage the churches and community centers and other local non-governmental organizations to deliver mental health awareness workshops that would be beneficial to our staff, and really partner with other employers to sponsor community mental health days, and so help to reduce the stigma that prevail about mental health. In addition to that, we could create local retention incentives for health workers. There is a global demand for mental health professionals, and it means that Jamaica often lose their talent to higher paying overseas jobs. So what could happen in regards to companies who are aware of mental health issues and want to do something about it is really maybe to offer some tax breaks and student loan forgiveness so that we could help to retain the professionals that are leaving as they're trained so that they will commit to working locally, for example, 3 to 5 years, giving back to Jamaica so that we would benefit from those whom we have trained. Um, in addition to that, is really just balancing productivity goals with employee well-being policies. What globalization does is that it pushes us towards a fast-paced, competitive productivity standards. And so local organization must avoid simply copying those without considering our cultural space and our stress tolerance. So we need to set well-being. We need to set perhaps look at how we do our performance indicators. What are those performance indicators? Are we aligning it as the US does, not thinking of really how do our people work? So for example, one of the things that I know is that if you live in a state that has snow and hail, you have to come out and you have to go to work. For the Jamaican, when it rains, people stay home. People don't want to come to work. So how do we encourage our people and recognize that these are the norms that obtain in Jamaica and not the norms that follow the norms that are of a different culture? Is everybody still with me?
Yes.
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 Mhm.
Okay.
I was thinking though, the thing about
Mhm.
the rain, I recognize that we had some heavy rains earlier in the year. And one of the
Mhm.
things I recognized, I was reluctant to come out to work, but it wasn't because I was afraid of rain. I was
Mhm.
afraid of my car falling in the potholes on the roads. So the truth is, our context is different, but it might not all be people based. Because I remember thinking to myself, I'm coming to work to earn money to pay to fix my car.
Mhm.
But I remember I'm very reluctant to drive because
Yes.
you can't see the roads and you could get into trouble.
Yes, and that makes sense. And that makes sense. And, even as you say that, Olivine, that puts another level of anxiety and stress upon you because as a woman, you're wondering if I fall in a pothole, how do I manage? Do I need even know how to change a tire? What do I do? you know and so these are even things that you think about when you are looking at persons and the stress that they even go through to get to work and how they manage. So I thank you for that point. Okay, so I'm going to look now at technology and hybrid work. Um, the benefit of technology and hybrid work is that it offers a level of flexibility that allows employees to better balance work and personal life, and it reduces commuting stress. There is increased autonomy. Employees can structure their days in ways that suit their productivity patterns. There is access to digital wellness tools. You have apps for mindfulness, counseling, and productivity that can support mental health. And there's broad inclusion. Remote technology can include employees from rural areas or with mobility challenge. So those are the benefits of having technology. However, and there are risks. As I said before, there are blurred boundaries. Work leaks into your personal time. It causes burnout and the inability to disconnect. How many of you can relate to that? That when you have work, it's almost like you're continually working. You don't stop for lunch. You sit there in your pajamas and you stay there until maybe 7 o'clock at night. Has anybody experienced that?
Later.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yes, yes.
I have that as well.
Yes.
Don't know when to turn off.
No, don't know when to turn off. Yes. And and even your family will say, "Mommy, are you still on the phone? Are you still on the laptop?" And so there is that blurred vision that causes burnout and the inability to disconnect. Then there's a digital overload, too many online meetings, constant notification, and multitasking, and that can lead to mental fatigue. Um, there is isolation. When we had the COVID-19, I believe that that was a time when we recognized how much we need each other, how much just having a friend come by, how much getting a hug meant, you know. So the reduced in-person interaction may lead to loneliness and weaker social bonds. There is the surveillance stress. Um, Persons monitoring you, monitoring tools that creates anxiety and a sense of mistrust. And there is now also the unequal access where not all employees have the same tech setup or internet reliability, and it causes stress and performance gaps. Now we have AI, and Olivia and I were talking briefly before we came on about the AI presentation and really how, you know, now thinking how daunting it can be for some persons who just getting used to being on Zoom, and now there's this other element of AI. And even that in itself, you're wondering, oh, is this going to take away our jobs? Where are we going to be 10 years from now with this AI phenomenon? So we're living in interesting times, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. Okay, so mental health awareness, uh, after awareness. So we are now aware of our mental health. COVID came, and people are now more open in talking about mental health. The positive impact is that there's reduced stigma. More employees feel comfortable discussing mental health without fear of judgment. For example, staff openly request stress leave or access or desire to access counseling services. In regards to policies, organization adopt formal mental health policies and wellness programs, and that can be seen in the employee assistance programs, mental health days, and really implementing flexible schedules. There are training for managers. Leaders learn on to spot signs of burnout and distress. And, even doing this kind of a presentation means then that, you are now being armed with the tools so that you are prepared to as you go into the industry as to how to recognize and to help the people who you will come upon with mental health challenges. Um, there is the integration into diversity, equity, and inclusion. Mental health becomes part of diversity, equity, and inclusion goals, and it addresses the mental health needs of marginalized groups. So, you look at, you're able now to understand, okay, somebody who is a little older, a woman who might be going through menopause, what are the things that may come up? The stresses, the fatigue, somebody who has caregiving problems, with aging parents. What are some of the things that they may face that I need to be aware of when their behavior seems to be a little off? And how can I meet them at that place and really say, okay, what's happening with you? What are you going through? Because of the season of life that they are in. There's also higher productivity and retention because employees feel more valued and supported. And that leads to greater engagement and lower turnover in companies that offer more robust well-being benefits. So that is what we're seeing as companies become more aware of mental health issues. The challenge is no, is that even though persons and organizations are aware of mental health issues, there is what we call that superficial support, where they simply talk about it, but they do nothing. It doesn't leave the policy, the paper. So they call that wellness washing. Um, there's no real follow through after the policy has been written. And in terms of burnout from hybrid work, yes, there is an awareness of burnout, but it doesn't, just having that awareness does not reduce the stress if the workload that is given to the staff is unrealistic, right? The fact is that employees are working longer hours from home, but are we thinking about that, or are we just looking at the bottom line and saying, oh, there's a target to be met, just do it, just do it, just do it? There is unequal access, where contract or part-time workers often get excluded from benefits. So they're not on staff, and so they're treated differently, right? They don't have the employee assistance program that others have, or paid leave. Is it that we can think about that when we consider that mental health affects people, whether they are on contract or whether they are full-time workers? And then there are the privacy concern. Employees fear that disclosures could affect their career advancement. And an example of that is where HR records, where the records that is placed on HR about this person who may have a mental challenge influence the promotion decision. Does that make sense to anybody?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So the contemporary workplace, I look now, still looking at the contemporary workplace, and I I want to look at the Jamaican situation, in that, yes, we are aware of mental health issues, and there is a growing acceptance, especially from younger workers and multinational companies operating in Jamaica. They're more vocal about mental health issues. So younger people are not afraid to talk about mental health, that the research has shown. However, there is a policy gap where many local businesses lack formal mental health policies, especially in informal or contract heavy sectors. When I was asked to do this presentation, I spoke to a friend of mine who has been an HR consultant for many, many years. And I said to her, give me an idea of what is out there. Are there policies that really speak to mental health, and what does a staff member do when they're having mental health challenges? And she said, really and truly, she has never seen any policy per se. Um, and you really, lamented that much more needs to be done in order to address this situation. So there is that policy gap, and the lack of formal mental health policies. The cultural shift, we're now having more public conversations on the radio, the TV, church forums. Persons are coming out. The one who comes to mind, I think of Julie Mango, who talks openly about her mental health issues. And that has started breaking the stigma. But unfortunately, the older generational attitudes may still resist. And then there is the global influence, where remote work, often with overseas companies, have brought new expectations around mental health support. So as the multinationals have come in, we are now being exposed to their culture that has brought the expectation, more support around mental health. Oh, my slides are a little bit confused. Okay, there is no help without mental health. One moment. Just a moment.
Yes, it's
Yes,
just now
Okay,
now.
yes.
sorry. I just had a little bit of a technical glitch. All right. Um, there is no health without mental health. What would you say? What would be your understanding of this quote? Anybody?
Yeah.
For me, that if you're, oh, go ahead.
No, man, go ahead. Go ahead.
So if your mind, your thoughts, your brain basically controls your body. So if your brain is messed up, if your emotions are not what they're supposed to be, then your body is going to follow.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes.
I was
And
also thinking that you're looking at the person as a whole being. You're not
mhm,
just looking at my body. Even if I'm a manual laborer, you still
yeah,
want me to be of sound mind while I'm doing my work.
exactly. Exactly. Thank you for that. And the fact of the matter is that without our mental health, our physical health is also compromised. Right? So that quote, which was taken from the World Health Organization, is powerful because it reframes mental health as central to our overall well-being. It is not secondary. And usually, as you've both said, usually the focus is more on the individual's physical health, and mental wealth is often overlooked. Mental health it impacts our productivity, our creativity, and it impacts the workplace safety. No, physical wellness programs, they're incomplete without the psychological well-being measures. And in the Jamaican context, mental health challenges they're under discussed because of the stigma that is attached to mental health, but they have a direct impact on the bottom line of the organization. And so when the staff experiences burnout and stress, they start to call in for sick days. And as I mentioned before, if the rain set up, they avoid work. Before a holiday and after a holiday, people are absent or productivity plummets. People begin looking for other jobs, and the commitment to their role and loyal to the organization wanes. Stress and burnout affects the delivery of service, and customers are treated as if they're a bother. And so it is important that you recognize that persons are a whole being, and that where there's stress, then it will and really to realize their abilities to learn well and to work well and to contribute to their communities. In other words, good mental health is essential. It's an essential component of overall health and well-being. And it really undergirds our ability to make autonomous decisions, build and maintain relationships, and positively influence the space we live in. Good mental health is more than just the absence of a mental health diagnosis. It is indicative in people thriving emotionally and psychologically, having a balanced approach to life, fulfilling one's potential and purpose, having a positive sense of an awareness of self. No, our mental health is not static, but can be described as being on a continuum. What do I mean by that? It means that we don't reach a point of mental health and stay there, but rather in the course of our lifetime, we will experience better states of well-being, and other times we will have challenging states. What influences then our mental health? There is a distinction between our mind and our body. And when we consider our mental health and our physical health and well-being, we can't separate them. There is one entity, it's one body. Our mental affects our physical, and our physical affects our mental. Mental illness then is a condition that affects an individual's thinking, our behavior, and our moods. and it results in significant distress or impairment in our ability to function. And so someone who, as you're going through a mental issue, it will impact how you operate and function in your relationship, in your occupation, in your social functioning, and also in your occupational functioning. Mental disorders are defined by a combination of how a person thinks, how they feel, how they perceive, and how they behave. There are several factors that impact our mental health. Mental health, it happens to anyone, right? It regardless of your gender, your age, your race, your ethnicity, your religion, your sexual orientation. However, some of us are more vulnerable than others, and that is because of our biological makeup, the genetics, our brain chemistry, our physical health. Um, we're also impacted by psychological factors. For example, you may think of when you know the debate that speaks about whether it was nature or nurture that caused us to be a particular way. And with psychological factors, it really speaks about how our environment impacts us, and how we respond to certain things in our lives. So, for example, how do we cope with stress? Do we bounce back from difficult situations, or are we influenced by what we see and how we learn? Um, in our childhood, we are impacted by that. So when a child is abused and goes through trauma and that is not dealt with, you see it coming up as an adult, right? um we are influenced by the things that happened in with our parents, for example, the generational patterns, the influences, and we bring it into the space, and sometimes we are not aware that these things impact us, but they do. And if they're not dealt with, if we're not given a space to talk about it, then it will show up. So for example, you have that person at work who is always so aggressive, and you're wondering, what is it that makes him so aggressive? And if you take the time to really listen, you will realize that, oh, these are the things that this person has dealing with, and really perhaps has never gotten a chance to talk about it, to articulate those feelings, or even have the words to express the feelings that really are a burden to them, that and has impacted them psychologically. And then there is a social and physical environment that contribute to our mental health in really distinct ways. And that includes our relationship with our family, with our friends, and our co-workers, our communities, our church. It includes our living conditions, safety and the stability of our homes, our workplaces, our country. Those are factors that impact our mental health. Any feedback on that?
I think that is true. One of the things I've noticed, I'm always surprised at some foreigners who are really casual. So, for instance, they don't have a problem with the window being open, the door being open, all that sort of thing. But I
Mhm,
recognize that I actually don't know a time when it was safe to be in Jamaica. So I'm hyper aware. So you lock the door even just to go around your backyard. You lock the door with key and you're
mhm,
watching. And a friend of mine, she was from St. Kitts and she came up to UA, Mona. And after her first semester, she went home for Christmas. And she was
mhm,
there telling everybody, roll up the windows and close the door. And everybody was looking at her because in St. Kitts, they don't live like that. But
mhm,
after 3 months in Jamaica, she changed. The way
mhm,
she saw life and saw other people changed. And I recognize, so it's as if we've been brought up, it's as if Jamaica has been at war ever since I was a child.
mhm,
So you have that sort of a paranoia then. It's the thing I talk about with my students. You see a young man, a young Jamaican man walking down the street, and you cross the road. He hasn't done anything
Yes.
but walk down the street, but you treat him as if he's a criminal because we look at young Jamaican men as if they're criminals. And
Right,
it's
right.
bad to say that, but it's true. And we hold on to our bag. The guy didn't even look at us, and we're holding on to our bag. You know, that sort of thing.
Exactly, exactly. So you see where that stereotype, right, that we have placed on that young man, even though he has not done anything. And what is it that is in our psyche that says that we need to be afraid? Did you experience a break-in? Did you experience something happening? Or did you perhaps hear something about on the news that have formed this opinion?
I think, though, that you see, even if you've just heard about it, it is
Mm-hmm.
everywhere. The news is so pervasive. You can't go
Yes,
anywhere and somebody's not talking about some bad things that have happened. So even if you
exactly.
haven't witnessed something yourself, you experience it because the people around you almost force you to experience it. If
Exactly.
you walk and leave your door, so for instance, I know I do that, and my
Mm-hmm.
sister is paranoid about us locking the door, even to just go 2 steps down to the back. As long as you can't see the door, she wants it
Yeah.
closed. And
Yes.
so that will cause me to begin to look at life like that too. Because I found
Mhm.
myself locking the door, believe it or not, even when she wasn't here to see me, because
Yes.
you're now taking it on board. So as I said, you don't even have to see it anymore. You experience it
Mhm.
because the people around you have experienced it.
Yes. It's almost like a vicarious kind of a thing, right? Um, and I get that because, I'm here in the States and I hear the news, I feel almost afraid for my family who is back there because I'm hearing all these stories. But then it's different when I come home and I'm like, oh, it's not so bad because it's almost like the news has taken on a different level of it's almost like wildfire. It becomes so much more magnified when I'm in this space and hearing it. And when I go, I realize, oh, I it's really not so bad. It's really not so bad. But I get what you're saying, Olivine. So these factors, whether they're social, whether they're psychological or biological factors, they're important and they determine how we manage stress, how we interact with others, and how we make decisions. They impact our capacity to thrive and conversely, our risk of developing various degrees of mental health conditions. And I want to say that we all have times when we struggle with difficult situations, emotions, experiences, or feelings. But when these emotions, feelings, and behaviors continue for a long time and negatively affect our ability to enjoy life and live in a way we want, then it's likely a mental problem, right? Um, yes, so there are different types of mental conditions, and the two most prevalent ones in Jamaica, the studies have shown is depression and anxiety. And they are serious and debilitating mental conditions. Now, depression is a persistent mood disorder that results in feelings of dejection. It can pervade daily life, affect basic activities such as eating and sleeping, and provoke suicidal thoughts. And then there's this anxiety disorders that involve a persistent state of worry or fear, um, and it manifests in everyday activities. It causes fatigue and sometimes it hurts how we function in our relationship, our occupation, socially, and in our professional performance. And the studies show that around 3% of Jamaicans suffer from depression. Who do you think has a higher rate of depression and anxiety, men or women?
Um, Men.
Okay. Why do you say that?
I think society has placed a lot on men's shoulders,
Mm-hmm.
so the expectation is greater. So that
Mm.
increases the worrying and the
Mm.
fear.
Okay. Okay. Well, the studies have shown that women have higher rates of depression and anxiety than men. And in a study in 2017 by the Global Burden of Disease, it shows that depression and anxiety disorders are among the most common mental health concerns that face the population of Jamaica. And 3% of Jamaicans have a depressive disorder, and 4.1% have an anxiety disorder. Women are at a disproportionate risk for both disorders, as 3.7% have depression and 4.3% have anxiety, compared to just 2.3% of men for each disorder. So it seems like our women are, carrying more of the depression and the anxiety. Local studies have also indicated that depression is a significant problem in Jamaica. And it found that 20% of respondents ages 15 to 74 reported symptoms of depression within the past month that study was done. And that's old study because it was done up from 2007 to 2008. And I would think that with COVID-19, the rates would have gone higher, but I didn't find anything to tell me, what those rates were. Um, Anxiety, 4% of Jamaicans suffer from anxiety, and most new cases of the disorder occur in persons who are 20 to 34 and within the 35 to 59 age group. What does that tell us in regards to the persons in this age group? What do you think as it pertains to the workforce?
Maybe decrease in output as you get
Mm.
older if these issues aren't dealt with.
Mhm. Because if the age is 20 to 34 and 35 to 59, those are your most productive age, I would think. And so, if it is most common among working age Jamaicans, then uh, it means then that there's even more concern for mental issues in the workplace. And as you said, productivity will lessen if these situations are not dealt with. And again, I would say that because of the what we just went through, I would want to see what the studies will show as it pertains to new information on anxiety and depression in light of COVID-19, the past years of COVID-19. So in addition to depression and anxiety, there's also bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, substance use disorder, PTSD, OCD, eating disorders, and personality disorders. Now, what is true about bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, and substance abuse is that there's that element of psychosis, which is that mental condition that manifests as hallucinations, erratic social behavior, and delusions that occur when people have these psychotic episodes, and their perception of reality is disrupted. No, as I said, disorders such as schizophrenia, bipolar, and severe depression or anxiety can cause psychosis. Substance abuse or general medical conditions such as Alzheimer's disease can also trigger psychotic episodes. And the incidence of psychosis in Jamaica has been estimated to 2.09 per 10,000 people. And psychosis and schizophrenia together account for 80% of the mental health issues for which persons visit the public clinic nationwide. And, you know, with psychosis, it puts a burden not just on the individual, but also on the person who cares for them. I think of my own I have my helper back in Jamaica who she has one son and he has schizophrenia. And it has been so challenging for her because in addition to the fact that he does not want to take medication, he's also in an environment where there is marijuana smoking. And so what happens is that he would get the medication and then go back to smoking the marijuana. And so she's always having a struggle. And she's a single mom. And it's been very, very difficult for her. I know what was helpful was when we were able to get him in a residential facility where he stayed for 3 months and there was marked improvement. But like a cycle, he came out because she couldn't afford to keep him there long term. And then he's now back in the environment where there's marijuana smoking and where he says, Mom, I feel better. I don't need to take my medication. And so it is very hard for her. And so you can imagine when there are psychotic breaks, it bears heavily on the caregiver. Um, Moreover, the cost of psychosis is to keep someone on the medication sometimes is really very difficult. Thank God for Bellevue that still gives she's able to get the shots for him, and the nurses come and they administer the shots to him when he wants, he's willing to take it, and that in itself is very difficult. So this is a very, very, very trying thing for persons who have this kind of a mental issue. Does anybody online have anybody who perhaps have any of these mental conditions that they could talk about?
Bipolar disorder, I know that the medication is very expensive. And the
Mm-hmm.
problem that we also have is that relatively few people have health insurance in Jamaica. It's only about 18% who do.
Mm-hmm.
So your housekeeper was unable to keep her son in the residential facility because of the price. But even
Yeah.
if he just had ordinary medication to take, that might also have been difficult because I know, for instance, that some of you can't get generic versions of the drug. You
Mm-hmm.
have to buy the branded version, which is with the Jamaican dollar quite
Yes.
expensive. So that is another thing, or
That is
lack of being able to afford afford health care.
exactly, exactly. And the thing with the psychotic disorder is that it can also lead to increased risk for other health problems. And those with schizophrenia and other severe mental disorders have been found to die 10 to 20 years earlier than the general population. And this is mostly due to cardiovascular disease and other preventable physical illness. So it is quite a challenge. So some signs of mental health issues. There is the behavior reaction that may be out of character, how their people may look like they're easily upset and sensitive or tearful. They're exhausted or constantly tired. They have issues with sleep. They have mood swings and changes in their mood, angry outbursts, aggression, irrational behavior. They have difficulty making decisions, communicating, thinking clearly. And then there's suicidal ideation, attempted suicide, or other types of self-harm. And then there's the not so obvious signs where, you may just brush it off, the changes in your mood or your appetite, using substance to cope, lack of regard for appearance and your personal hygiene. There's a loss of interest in things or activities that was once enjoyed, lack of motivation or desire to plan for the future. And then there's also the complaints of pain, aches, nausea, and tremor. So these are I call them the not so obvious signs because we may think that, oh, really nothing is happening with you. You're perhaps being antisocial and just want to be by yourself when there is a withdrawal. But if a person's behavior is out of character, perhaps it needs further exploration. So there's this quote that I saw from Bessel van der Kolk that says trauma does not just happen to other people, it happens to us, our friends and family, and our neighbors. While humans are an extremely resilient species, able to rebound from relentless wars, family violence, and man-made disasters, experiences like these inevitably leave traces on our minds, our emotions, and even our biology and immune systems. This matters not just to those who are directly affected, but to the people around them. And I believe that this goes back to what Olivine shared earlier about just hearing about the things happening to different people and how it impacts us. And as a nation, we have and continue to experience tremendous acts of violence against our children, our women, our men. And when I think about it, several children have gone missing without a trace. There are accidents, there are domestic violence, there's poverty, uncertainty, there is despair and hopelessness. And one of the good initiatives I know that has become available in light of counseling are organizations and, just the Ministry of Education in schools that they bring in professional counselors when tragic occurrences happen to their members. And what I believe is that when Bessel van der Kolk spoke, he highlighted that we are impacted by the experiences that, be it personal, be it with our family, and therefore we must tend to our mental and emotional health, just as we would if we had a cold, a fever, or a broken bone, right? We have to tend to our mental health. And I believe that because we're so exposed to, we hear it every day on the radio, this was killed, a car with 5 people on it, all of them died. It's almost like we become a little bit, I don't know. It's like we become hardened sometimes when really and truly it's because we never get to we haven't been able to deal with the issue and to talk about it. It's like we don't get space and time. It happens so quickly and so often. We don't get time to really discuss, okay, so let's just process what you're going through you know let me hear how you're feeling and really to sit down and to process the pain and the tragedy because there is just so much of it happening. Can anybody relate to what I'm trying to say? Hello?
I'm
Yeah,
seeing comments saying yes in the chat and that kind of thing.
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
Okay.
But I'm also thinking, I've heard that
Mm-hmm.
even people who aren't yet born could be
Mm-hmm.
affected. So say a lady was raped or, so she might, the way she raises her children, she may never talk about the rape, but
Right.
perhaps the way she behaves, perhaps the way she reacts to people around, whatever it is. But there's a
Yeah.
way too that she might pass down that stress to her children, to the child who is born from that
Yes.
rape, if that resulted there, you know.
Yes.
They have statistics or they have studies that suggested that Holocaust survivors had passed down certain behaviors and traits to their children.
Yes, and that is so true. I recently just read a book called Dora, the girl that nobody loved, which is a true story of a lady who her mom had that same reaction to her. She never loved her, she never hugged her, and she grew up just in an she gave her away. Even though she knew her mom gave her away, and she could not understand why. And I think it's because of just how the father of the child treated the mother. And so she in turn treated her really, really badly. And so she was talking about the book in the book and just how in coming to know Christ was when she was able to know, understand that, look, somebody does love me. And so that point that you have made is really important, Olivine. And the truth is, though, that yes, we know about mental health, but there are also some myth that we hold that makes us reticent in caring for our mental health. So I'm going to look now at some myths. In the context of the Jamaican workforce and the general population, mental health challenges are often under discussed, and that is due to stigma and myths. And one of the myths is that mental health issues are rare. On the contrary, they're quite common because they affect 1 in 4 persons at some point in their lives. Uh, the second myth is that only people with severe issues go to therapy. On the contrary, therapy can be beneficial to anyone and provide tools and strategies to cope and manage stressful situations and relationships. The third myth is that only weak people experience mental health challenges. The reality is that mental health problems can affect anyone, regardless of how strong they are. And these are dependent on a number of reasons. And it may include, as we were talking about earlier, adverse child experiences. A child may have, as a child, a person may have experienced neglect, abuse, trauma, stress, bereavement, broken relationships, physical and sexual abuse. There's also prenatal stress that mothers go through that can be very stressful and cause mental issues. There's social isolation and loneliness, unemployment, poverty, debt, homelessness, and poor housing and physical illness or disability. The fourth myth is mental health issues will go away on its own. Um, without the appropriate intervention, the truth is that mental health issues can worsen over time, and early intervention and help can prevent escalation of problems and lead to better outcomes. So the earlier you deal with the issue, the better the result will be. And the fifth is that discussing mental health problem makes one vulnerable. I must admit that it is very difficult and sometimes scary to discuss private information, the struggles and concerns that may come up in our lives, and especially in a professional environment. It's difficult. It's difficult. On the other hand, sharing can reduce the stigma and it makes space for open conversations, building understanding, and really fostering empathy in persons. Any questions, any comments about these myths?
I didn't have a question about the myths per se, but it occurred to me while you were
Mhm.
reading them that people who have mental health challenges are probably not making good decisions. So, for instance, they decide that they won't discuss it because it will make them vulnerable. They decide that they won't take their medication because it will go away on its own. Sorry, that sort of thing. But
Mhm.
so you as an HR person have to understand that this person isn't operating optimally, and it is a sort of tricky thing in that you know that they're not well, but they don't know it, or they probably don't know it to the
Right.
degree that you are witnessing it. However, you have to treat people with respect, and you have to honor their agency. So you can't force people to go to get treatment. You know what
Mhm.
I mean? You can't discriminate against them. So, for instance, if I had diabetes, you wouldn't fire me, or, but if I have a
Mhm.
mental problem, you may want to behave in a weird way regarding decisions about my promotion, etc.
Mhm.
How are you going to treat with those? It might not come here, but it occurred to me while you were reading this for some reason that
Mhm.
we need to look at something like that as an HR set of people, that
Yes.
it's actually more subtle and trickier than we think.
Yes. Yes. It is. It is.
Doc,
Mhm.
just to say quickly, as I'm hearing Olivine speaks, that when it comes on to putting the organization at risk, I believe that we will have to dictate that the person get help or we assist them somehow in getting help. Because if they continue working with the machinery in a particular way or whatever role that they are doing, that other persons are at risk based on their decisions or how they operate any kind of machinery, then we will have to, not that we will have to fire them or, sever ties, but to find a way as to how to help because of the risk involved to the organization and the people around.
Right.
If
And
not, how else do you think we could manage it then, if not that kind of way?
I, I'm looking at the myth for where it says mental health issues will go away on its own. And so I think of somebody who, you can see that something is wrong with them, but they have not come to terms to really understand to say that yes, something is wrong and I need to get help. Then I believe that in order to promote the safety in your organization, then you will have to take that stand to say, hey, you need to go and get help because you also have a responsibility to other members of staff. And so while they are of the opinion that, hey, there's nothing wrong, I can manage this, you now have to say, no, this is what we're gonna do, get help, and then get the feedback now from that person who will do, has it from the professional who they will see, have they been coming to therapy? Are they progressing? And just those general questions, because there's also the level of confidentiality that must be kept with the client and the therapist. But you get feedback as to how, how are things going? And then, ensure that if it is medication that they need, do a check-in because you really can't force them. But I believe that where you build that level of trust with your and I call them team members, then you're now able to guide and to really encourage them. And I believe that, that is the most that you can do as a professional. I may be wrong, but what do you think?
I'm also thinking that we have new privacy laws and all of that. So
Yes.
you do have to handle, well, for one thing, you wouldn't have an internal counselor in the office. Maybe the office would pay a counselor outside to see its staff. And it would have to understand that what the person says in that counseling session is not the
Yeah,
business of the company, even though the company is paying for the sessions.
definitely,
And
definitely.
as long
Oh,
as Sharon was saying, if the person is an actual danger, so I wouldn't want somebody who I know has some sort of mental illness to be wielding a machete or anything like that near me. I wouldn't want that. I
no,
wouldn't,
definitely not.
I don't want to be around somebody whose behavior suggests that I'll come to work one day and find that they've killed themselves in the office. I don't want that. But
Mm-hmm.
by the same token, you can't force people. Maybe what you could do is some sort of sensitization thing. You're not calling any names, but you
Right.
have something in the office, say a series of lunchtime workshops that talk about the fact that people that you talk about things like this, like what we're doing here
Yes.
now. Or if you didn't have it before, you have you put something on your health policy, your health insurance policy for mental health, and then have a sensitization thing for the staff that this is now available and anybody who is feeling. But the fact is, I think education has to be one of the ways for people to understand that these are myths, that the health issue will go away on its own. Though I was
Mhm.
also going to point to you, Kamisha's very interesting question about temporary lapses. So temporary depression for a reason. For example, you lost a parent and went through a period of depression for several months. The fact is, we understand that. But if it's just a generalized anxiety, I'm afraid of the neighbors, I'm afraid of the man in the bus, I'm afraid of everything and everybody, then that is not that is different, I think. It is different. You are still depressed and you're still anxious, but if there is no reason, that the death of a parent, the death of a loved one is a reason we can all understand. But, just no reason and you're like that, then it suggests that there is something else that we should be looking at.
Yes, yes, yes.
I think depending on the company, the industry that one works in would probably help to dictate, I don't want to use the word force, but how far or how quickly the HR person takes things. So say for example, law enforcement, right? These persons are armed, and you don't really want to wait too long
Yes.
for somebody who has that type of access to things, to, if something is going awry, to say something to them. And while um you know general education is always a good thing, sometimes it's good, depending on the circumstances, to get right to the point, to get right at the person before it goes somewhere that it shouldn't go, and then we're left with coulda, woulda, shoulda situation. I saw, but you know I didn't do anything because XYZ. So yeah.
Right.
But I would ask a question though, for some types of jobs. So for instance, a job like the military, the security forces, shouldn't those people be doing checkups anyway? Because you really do not want people who are armed and who understand combat. Because again, I can hold a gun, but I really still don't know how to use it. My hands are trembling. But somebody who has been trained to use this as a weapon, you don't want that
They
person.
really do.
You don't want that
Yeah.
person. So they
They
should
don't.
be having regular checkups
Yeah,
anyway.
they don't.
And
They don't.
one of the things I said, and I will speak to it further when I go further down, is that perhaps that that assessment of the individual. So like you do that performance appraisal every year, do that assessment to ensure to see where the person is mentally, and do it in such a way that you don't have an excuse. It's always being done so that when there are changes in the person, you can see, you can evaluate what is happening, and I think that is important.
They're actually afraid. So, like, I know for the soldiers, they have the chaplain that they can speak to. However, they are afraid to do so because if they're seen doing it, then it can affect their career. Or
Right.
if, it's put on their record or something, then, that's an issue for them later on. So they're really not getting the help that they
Right.
should
Yes.
But
Yes.
again, sorry to jump in
concerning the job
again.
they do.
But
Yeah.
this thing about affecting people's careers, this is something for the public good, because as I said, you don't want people who've been trained to use weapons to not receive the help that they need. It should be against the law for you to hurt somebody who has sought medical attention, because getting your mental health right is seeking medical attention. And in the same way, if somebody had cancer and you fired him, or you penalized him for having cancer or for having diabetes or something like that, there should be a sanction against any company that somebody was looking after his or her mental health and that person was penalized for that. Because as I said, it is a public good in the case of people with weapons, but it's a good as well in any ordinary company. You don't want somebody to get up one day and throw acid on other people. You don't want people to come with a knife or a broken bottle. They might not have a gun, but you don't want somebody to put food, to put poison in people's food in the fridge. You don't want people to behave in ways that are inimical to the welfare of everybody else in the organization. So if the organization, if I sought help and the organization penalized me for that, then the organization should itself be penalized.
But that's true, but they're not going to say that. They're not
No,
going to say that's why they fired you.
Mm-hmm.
Because they can get in trouble for that. They're not going to say that. They're going to find some other thing that, you were incompetent in this or whatever. They're not going to put that. Because
Right. And
then
and
it's
and and,
ground
and
for
so
appeal and labor law and everything and thing get into that.
right. And so the point is that is why we're having this conversation to see how do you go in and change that culture that prevails. How do you tear down that wall that has been built that says that, and considering that any one of us can have a mental situation at any given time. It doesn't mean that, you're going to go ballistic or whatever, but any one of us can have a breakdown. And if you think about it like that, then I believe that, in trying to advocate, greater advocacy will be made in order to protect those who are perhaps a little bit more vulnerable than us. And that is the way I look at it. So yes, we know that these things happen. How then can we change when we know that persons are perhaps because they're vulnerable, because they know that they will lose their jobs or be ridiculed? How do we now make that space a safe space for them to share with us that this is what I'm going through before they get to that point where I'm wielding the gun and I'm trying to shoot? How do we get them where they can trust you as the HR professional, where it's not just business as usual and it's about the company, but I see you as a person. And my role is to help you so that you don't get to that place where it becomes a life and death situation. Does that make sense to anybody?
A lot of
Yes, it
sense.
does.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to just add quickly, Doc, because you're midst stirring a lot of things in thought, is that if we can make, as HR persons, if we can make the testing then
Mm-hmm.
ongoing, because it's a part of the culture where we test for the
Right.
mental health of our people. So we have
Yes.
pilots, we have police, we have soldiers, we have regular people in our space, and they're not gonna come and what's her name? I forgot her name. Is right that they might not come because of the stigma and all of that. So therefore, as HR persons, so we'll put this thing in place where we have a routine check of our members each
Yes.
year, each 6 months, and we do the relevant tests so that we can do the tracking and assessment.
Yes.
And another question, well, yeah, it's a question I think, where we have students now about to start the program,
Mm-hmm.
and basically everybody is new, and so we don't have a track record as to how, we don't have any previous knowledge of, or they don't have, I'm not a part of the program, we've passed through that already. So these new persons coming in, you don't have a track of the persons who are in your group and so on. But there are some behaviors that just this presentation you're doing, we're seeing some manifestation. So I'm
Yes.
just asking the question, who do we turn to for intervention? Because we want to intervene, we're not psychologists. So do we go to Auntie Olivine for assistance?
One of
Just take
the things, thank you for that question. And one of the things I remember as you asked that is that when I was doing my master's, I had to do what is called it's called the MMPI, which asks you a whole plethora of questions to really determine what is happening, who are you? And I say that to say that it may mean that maybe for some, depending on the type of job that you're doing, maybe it means that you have to now get a psychologist to apply these testing tools that can really pick up what is perhaps part of your behavior or your personality that will come out in those tests that and give you an idea of really what is happening with the person. So it's would form an assessment. It's an assessment tool, but it's outsourced. So you get somebody who will do it, a psychologist who will then vet it and give you feedback, or look and say, okay, this person is not fit to carry a weapon because I can see that he has um his ability to regulate his emotions is really a 2 as against it when it's supposed to be a 10, or those are my words. So I believe that would be one way in order to determine who is fit for what, and who is, are you in a position to take on this job or be in this class or whatever it may be. So do an assessment, because there are assessments that are out there.
And could I just add that the University of the West Indies actually does provide for that sort of thing. We have a health center, and students in their fees pay for health insurance, and the health insurance includes a mental health unit in the health
Yeah.
center, and they seem to be quite generous in the terms on your health card for your
Okay.
mental health ability to go in and talk to counselors. They have people who are trained psychiatrists, trained psychologists, trained counselors, people with different types of training depending on the needs that you have. So they do have that. Additionally, this is a department of sociology, psychology, and social work. And the psychology unit of this department, they have set up a clinic. So the students who are doing the MSc in clinical psychology would work under the supervision of their lecturers, and people who have problems can be seen by them. The students, obviously they are senior students, it's not somebody who's just beginning the program. These are people about to graduate. They can get help with them. And if there is something that seems a little doubtful to the student, they have the lecturers backing them up. People with PhDs, everybody there has a PhD in his or her area. So it's good advice. So there is a lot of help. And I'm saying it because there are students who will be beginning the program and who may run into problems in their groups in during the school year. They should know that there is something. And of course, they can always speak with me or with the lecturer whose class this is that they're experiencing some problem in. And then we would know to make the referral. And it is confidential. Again, and you can go in by yourself or you can have us refer you. We have a good relationship and our students are usually seen very quickly. We've had people, I'm on the phone with somebody, bring that person in now, and literally just go straight to the health center. So, because they trust us, we have been referring people when we find needs for the last 30 years.
Right. Thank you. Okay, so again, these are some other myths and versus reality and the impact that I found that I thought were quite interesting. Mental illness is a sign of weakness or laziness. People with mental health issues are dangerous. The reality is that most are not violent, but they are likely to be victims and aggressors itself. It says, and then the fear and stigma can lead to exclusion, discrimination, and a lack of team cohesion. Prayer or church alone can cure mental illness. The reality is that spiritual care is valuable, but often needs to be paired with professional treatment. Employees may forego evidence-based care, leading to longer recovery times and higher turnover. So in a society where, church is a significant part, plays a significant part, persons may think that, oh, this person is just demon possessed and, you just pray it out. However, help is needed in some instances. Yes, prayer is effective, but also in addition to that, professional help and treatment is necessary. Another one that I found interesting was children can't get depressed or anxious. Young people also experience mental health challenges, often in different forms. Parents in the workforce may struggle silently with caregiving stress affecting performance. And so, another one is that stress at work is just part of the job, just deal with it. The reality is that chronic stress leads to burnout, depression, and physical illness. Unchecked stress increases absenteeism, turnover, and medical claims and reduces productivity. So those are some myths. Any myths that you guys had about mental health that has changed over time that you want to share? Any myths?
The thing about people with mental illness are dangerous. I
Mm-hmm.
have seen, I know I was almost killed by a man throwing a rock at a child who was teasing him. So he was
Mm-hmm.
provoked, but he
Yes.
didn't have any, he wasn't shy about, throwing a missile at this
Mm-hmm.
young man. But as you say, that is rare. That kind of extreme behavior might be rare, and they might be dangerous, but more dangerous to themselves than to other people. So
Mm-hmm.
that is something that for me has shifted over the years.
Yes. And even as you spoke, Olivine, I recall hearing the news about almost like a serial killer. These are my words. Somebody who was going around and burning the street people just recently. Did you hear about that?
No, I did not.
Yes,
No.
it was in the news that,
Yes,
three people
yes.
were just being found dead. And so it speaks to the callousness that we have about our persons who are in that situation because it comes hand in hand. You have the mental issues, then the homelessness, you become a vagrant, your family don't know how to deal with you, and so you have nowhere to go. And these are people, when you talk to them, you realize that they're not mad. Yes, they have an illness, but they're not mad, as we would term them. So it's heartbreaking. And I think our perspective of mental health really needs to change.
Sorry, Doc, but you've just raised a very interesting point for me. The person who
Mhm.
is walking around the place and burning people to death, that
Mhm.
is that mental illness or is that just cruelty and criminality?
Yes, a different
Because,
level of evil.
yes, because that is not normal behavior.
And I
So
guess if you look at it, you would also say that person now has a mental challenge because anyone in their right mind
would not be doing that.
would not be doing that. So, yeah, yeah. Oh boy. Okay, so at this point, I want to invite you to answer a trivia question. And you can just place your answers in the chat. Um, and then I will respond afterwards. Jamaica has about 2.82 million people. How many psychiatrists do you think serve this population?
I'm seeing 10, 30, and probably 2% in the chat.
Okay. So Jamaica has approximately 40 psychiatrists serving a population of 2.82. That is one psychiatrist for every 70,500 people. And what the WHO has said that we should be serving, there should be one psychiatrist for every 10,000. So you see the disparity. So mental health care in Jamaica faces several systemic problems. There's stigma, substance abuse, limited access to specialized care. Our facilities are under-resourced and overburdened. And only 1/3 of our community private care centers offer mental health services. There's limited availability of specialists to treat the mental health and the high cost of mental health services, as we alluded to earlier, right? Yes. So why the workplace matters? Because on average, people spend 8 hours of their days, 5 days a week, and that is 1/3 of their lives at work. And so that it means the physical and the psychosocial conditions of work have a profound impact on our overall well-being. And the workplace, it becomes a critical space where health can be either protected or compromised, not just a place for economic productivity. In the Jamaican context, for many workers, especially those with multiple jobs or long commutes, the time that is spent on work-related activities can be even higher. So, work can be either a risk or a protective factor, in that with a risk, as we had said before, there is the excessive workload, job insecurity, or there's that toxic culture that is within some organization, discrimination, the lack of autonomy, and then there's unsafe environment. But then it becomes a protective factor when you have safe environments where there is supportive leadership, where there is the recognition of employees, persons are given promotion when they do good work, and there's opportunity for growth. And what the research has shown is that where there is good work environment, it reduces stress, and persons don't get ill readily. They're able to thrive. And where the environment is poor, it does trigger or worsen mental and physical conditions. And in the context of the informal and contract work arrangements, it can amplify the risks if protections are minimal or absent. And so it is so important to understand how the workplace impacts the people who come to work. Most of our lives are spent there, and so it augurs that we must invest in workplace mental health, because it is not a luxury. It is a core business strategy for efficiency and for growth. Because without the human capital, then the business will suffer. Right? If you don't have good human resource, then the bottom line will suffer. So the health risk, high workload, unrealistic expectation, poor management style, toxic culture, discrimination, harassment, and workplace imbalance. So I want to know what's your why, as you have embarked on this career of human resource.
Alison was asking a question from before.
Oh, I'm not seeing the chat. Sorry. Can you read it for me?
Oh, no, it's not a question, actually a comment. So you were saying that yes, to invest in the workplace, and the workplace can be a toxic place, but also for some persons' mental health, the workplace is the best place. It's some place that maybe it's the only place that they have friends.
Of course.
So really and truly, and like some of the best people I've ever known have been my coworkers and past coworkers, and it's surprising what you share with your coworkers, so that yes, it can be a great place for your mental health. And yes, it is something that that what is it now is needed to invest in, like you said. So yes.
Yeah, yes. I take that point, of course. I take that point, of course. And yes, I agree with you. I agree with you. And so even as you are talking, can you share with me then, um, um, how do you see your role in this profession? What is your why in why you have chosen to be in HRD? Anybody?
I'm laughing to myself. It might not be nice to say you thought it was an easy degree to get.
Oh
Oh,
boy.
sorry. I didn't hear. I missed some of it. Sorry.
How do you see your role in this profession? What is your why? Why did you enter this profession? And Olivine said, "Oh, you thought it was an easy degree." She said it.
No. So I'm not an HR professional. I'm an general admin assistant, but um, I have seen over the years and had experiences that need to change. Let's just put it like that. You know, the human has gone out of the human resource management or development in some places, and to the point where it's a matter of just do your work,
Mm-hmm.
keep your head down, and go home, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I try to keep, so even my workspace, I will print pictures of beaches and stuff because that is what I love. So because I want my office and my space to be, a cheery place, not
Mm,
just for me, but for, anybody else who wants to come in. So
yes.
um for me there are things that need to change, like for my work environment, to not just make things more efficient, but to improve the culture, improve the attitudes, so that persons, and it's not just that persons give 110%, but that persons feel good to give the 100%, that they're supposed to give at work.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, so that's my why. I see changes that I would make if I was in that position. So I would like to give myself the opportunity to make those changes if possible.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's my why for the program.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else want to share their why and how they see their role in this profession? And even so, how do you view mental health and mental health issues? Are you willing and aware, to talk about your own mental challenges or struggles, be it stress, burnout, depression, anxiety, or any other disorder?
Well, I'm not an HR person. In fact, I see myself as an operations manager. I'm the person who is the coordinator of this program. And why did I put this topic in our symposium? It's
Mm-hmm.
because we don't have a course where we deal with this in the general 2 years of the program. But I think it's important, as you say, that we send out a new wave of HR persons who are sensitized and who can go and make changes in corporate culture, in Jamaican culture. Because again, it's not only the corporations that have a lot of money, but a lot of our persons will find jobs in small and medium sized companies. A lot of Jamaicans work in small and medium sized companies. And so it is a way of changing Jamaican culture around this issue.
Yes.
We have this talk here, we have something on integrating persons with disabilities. There's a lot wrong with the Jamaican workforce right now, and it's our job to fix it. And this is one of the things that is wrong with the Jamaican workforce right now. And so we would want to be training our students, the people who are going out there and who will have influence in organizations, to step up and take a stand on this issue. Because I
Amen.
do believe that if we really want to fix Jamaica, if we want to fix our economy, we want to fix the society, we have to fix the people. And as you say, the workspace is very influential in people's lives. And so if we can fix the workforce, if we can fix the workspace, then we can make some ground in Jamaica.
Yes. Amen. Yes, I agree. Yes. Yes. That makes sense. And I so commend you for this move because and it's so even in looking at it, it's really know how do you know what you have learned, what you have been exposed to, and implement it. And cultures are difficult to change, and persons are set in their ways, but it can be done. The Berlin Wall was taken down by just one stroke, somebody going and just hitting, and it's no more.
One of the other things I wanted to say just quickly is that one of the talks we have tomorrow coming up is HR policy development. And I would invite everybody to come back so that you learn how to develop HR policies, so that if you are, we mentioned HR policy earlier in this talk, and if you are in a company that needs revision or needs to have a policy started from scratch, then you can put yourself there. You can do the first draft and, of course, show the people in the organization that you're forward thinking. And eventually we will have laws and you would have been ahead of the game. But part of you adding value to your organization is to come with things that will take the organization to the next level. And I think that this addressing, being sensitive, HR, being sensitive to the mental health of the workforce, of the people who work there, that will be a major game changer in Jamaica.
Yes. Yes, thank you. Thank you. So as we move on, what then is the HR practitioner's role? One is to build a proactive mental health culture. And what do I mean by that? A lot of the times, what we practice in HR is really reactive. When something happens, then you send the person to therapy. And what we're seeing here is that in a proactive mental health culture, have policies that function not only to drive increased awareness, but more importantly, to put your money where your mouth is. It is easy to say that you support mental health, but if you don't back it up with your words, with institutional actions, it is also easy for support to wane and falter along the way. A proactive mental health culture cannot be created with lip service only. And what does that culture look like? It means that you will have inclusive engagement of all employees, especially those who are the hardest to reach, and those who are even the ones who are at the lowest ranked part of the totem pole. They must have a voice. They must feel that their voice is heard. Employees need proactive tools to meet them where they are. And they must have benefits. Having a benefit is a start. However, the culture must support mental health. So you may have the benefit, but then you need to have a culture that actually supports the mental health issues. Number two, advocate for wellness policies. Ensure that the policies move from paper to action. And the types of policies may include vacation, time off, family and medical leave, flexible work arrangements, workload management, transparent bonus and promotion structures, crisis intervention plans, and soliciting consistent staff feedback. I believe that it is important to move out of your office and go on the ground floor and really talk to your people, hear what is happening, hear what is really the concern of the staff. You won't know if, and as I thought about it, I thought of like, the rarefied air upstairs on the top floor. When you come down and you see and you understand and the staff see you milling around with others, then they get an opportunity to say, hey, you really want to understand who I am and what I go through and how I live life, which may be different from what you are exposed to in your own life. So get consistent staff feedback and foster trust and confidentiality within the unit. There has to be confidentiality within HR, and they must feel that you are for them. You're not just for the organization, but that staff means something to you. Design inclusive, mentally safe work environments, and staff should feel not just physically safe, but also psychologically safe. And this comes when there is that shared belief that team members can engage in interpersonal risk-taking. They can express their ideas and concerns, speak up with questions, and admit their mistakes without fear of being undermined, embarrassed, or punished or ridiculed. It must be a supportive environment among the team. Yes, must be supportive, and each person should feel like they can be themselves. They can speak their minds with respect, of course. They can share ideas and even fail together. The team members feel that they're not alone and that they have support when issues arise. They feel that their well-being and being at work is supported and valued. Training and development on emotional intelligence and resilience. And, this may include you having workshops and seminars that are interactive, and, where people can have real life and practical learning can take place because there are group activities and scenarios and different things that are engaging and really, really practical. Coaching and mentorship for personalized developmental plans. And the goal is that the employee will recognize and understand and learn how to manage their own emotions. They will learn how to understand the emotion of others. They'll be able to identify what triggers them, So you will bring in persons who will have these kind of seminars, these kind of workshops that teaches motivation, empathy, social skills, conflict resolution techniques, and all of those things. In terms of your resilience training, you can use those to help employees with mental tools and habits that help them to recover from setbacks and adjust to change and how to maintain their performance while under pressure. And the key thing is that they will learn how to understand stress and how it impacts them. They will learn about how to challenge those thoughts that are really not helpful for them, problem solving, building and maintaining their support system. Somebody said that, the best times are at work for her. How do persons who don't have that know how to foster that? If I spend most of my time at work, it means then that I need to get along with my coworkers. And what are the things that is happening that is making work uncomfortable for me? Wellness habits, nutrition, exercise. I know that Sagicor has their run every year. Is it possible that you could have a gym, an instructor that comes in and teach people how to eat properly, and so that their health, their overall health and well-being is also looked into. So the other one is managing psychosocial risks. This means that it addresses aspects of work that could harm employees' mental health, their emotional well-being, and their overall job performance. And these risks may come from how the organization is organized, how work is organized, how is it managed, and experience. And it's not just the physical environment. So you have a talk with your staff. How are things going for you? Really talk to me. How is your work? How are you performing as you think you should perform? If not, what are your challenges? The person may say, okay, they feel as if they're overworked, they're being micromanaged, they're not communicated, they don't know what the target is, they don't know what they're supposed to be doing. It may be that they're being harassed or bullied. There's job insecurity and conflict between work and personal life. Children are going back to school now. They don't have anybody to pick up the child. They are worried that the child has to take the bus. All of those other things that plays into our life as people, it matters, and it should not be left, unspoken about. Why does it matter to bring up the HR role? Because if and the psychosocial risk, if left unmanaged, it can lead to, again, low productivity, absenteeism, high turnover, and just conflict at work. What can organizations do? There is mental health literacy programs that can be implemented where HR practitioners are taught how to become aware and to understand mental health issues, how to recognize warning signs and know how to seek help, right? The culture, it's normalizing a culture where mental health care is discussed and information is provided. So that's what the mental health literacy program does. What does an EAP and access to counseling, how is that helpful? It will be able, to provide access to professional therapists, perhaps making counseling a part of the annual appraisal system to encourage staff to actively engage in sessions, right? So when you make counseling mandatory, you say, okay, you are in a high stress job, it is important that each year you have 3 hours of mental health counseling, and that forms a part of your appraisal. If that is not done, then your appraisal cannot be signed off, because you're doing it both for the good of the client, of the staff, and also for the good of the organization, right? So also flexible work arrangement. Listen to your staff, know what is happening in their lives and when they're in need. Ensure that direct supervisors know their people and can advocate for them and what they need. So for example, when you have that liaison with the supervisor and the staff, you will know that, hey, this is a real need and not just somebody who wants flexible work hours because they want to waste time or because they, it's not necessary, but it's part of, it would help them in how they deliver, in their output. And it means that what flexible work hours does is that you adjust schedules or work locations to support employees' mental health and their work-life balance. So if that will help the employee, then, why not think about it? Why not consider that if it is that what will help them? And, even for somebody who's doing caregiving, somebody may have an elderly parent who they're having at home and there's nobody else and they can't afford. Could it be then that they will have that flexible work arrangement? The organization could also implement an anti-stigma campaign. And I believe it has to start from the top, where top level management starts to practice what they preach. So if it is about, normalizing mental health, you start looking at, okay, how can we break the stereotypes and the discrimination around mental health? start maybe hold an annual wellness week with sessions that talk about, nutrition, that talk about coping, that talk about just bringing light to this issue, and having persons from top management being a part of that, and maybe even sharing how they manage their mental health when they had a situation. So it's leading by example, changing the culture, and having everybody be a part of it. And the final one is the psychological safety in team management. And this deals with creating an environment where employees feel safe to speak up about challenges without fear of punishment or ridicule. And one of the ways that can be done is also perhaps to use an anonymous employee feedback tool so that concerns can be raised without fear. I know in an organization that I was in, that was one of the things that you give feedback. You talk about, what's happening in your unit, and it is done anonymously. And that element of repercussion, it wasn't hanging over your head whether or not you would be punished if you brought something to light. And I believe that was important in having our voices heard. Any feedback as to what I just shared on what the organization can do?
I agree with these.
Oh,
Okay. So I have a short vignette called Quietly Droning. Can somebody read for me, and then we can just go through the discussion prompts? Can anyone read for me, please?
Give me a second to find.
Like somebody whose voice we haven't heard
Oh,
yet.
sure. Oh,
No, not to, if you wanted to volunteer, but I was just thinking it'd be a nice opportunity for somebody we haven't heard. Laidley. Candice.
Okay. Jermaine works as a customer service supervisor at a large telecommunications company in Kingston. Over the past few months, he has been dealing with severe anxiety and insomnia due to a combination of heavy workload, ongoing restructuring, and personal financial pressures. The company's HR department has a formal employee assistance program on paper, but no one has ever explained how to access this, and there are no awareness campaigns or check-ins to remind staff it exists. Managers are not trained to spot signs of distress, and HR mostly gets involved only when performance issues are formally reported. Jermaine's anxiety worsens, leading to frequent mistakes and tense interactions with his team. Instead of a confidential meeting or support, he receives a written warning for failure to meet performance standards. Feeling humiliated and unsupported, he starts using sick days to avoid work, eventually exhausting his leave. His productivity and morale continue to decline, and he begins job hunting, determined to leave the organization.
Thank you, Candice. So, discussion one, how could HR have acted proactively to identify and support Jermaine before his performance deteriorated? So don't all answer at once.
Sorry, not answer the question, but I was actually thinking that you realize that in an organization where they don't think that they've done anything wrong, they're happy to see the back of Jermaine so that the next person is going to have this same problem as well. You notice?
As well. Yes, yes. So any thoughts on what could have been done differently? How could they have acted proactively? See that word? Proactively to identify and support Jermaine.
I'm thinking when they first saw the signs, they could have called him in to find out what was happening with him, what was going on.
So that's your check-in, right? Yeah.
Right.
What else? Anything else?
I think in the
Seeing, mm,
no, please go
go
ahead. Please go ahead.
Seeing that there is ongoing restructuring, which means ongoing change, um, it says it has a formal assistance. They could actually do what they set out to do on paper, explain how to access the EAP, and remind persons that it's there,
Right.
for persons who are having issues with any changes that are being done.
Exactly. Exactly. And so if persons really, I guess a reminder or refresher is I think is what you're saying. Let people, and do a blast, do a people, everybody has phone now. Do a blast of whatever and to remind people. Repetition is good when you want to promote. That is why people advertise so often, because after a while you're even singing the song. So repetition is good. So do a blast. Anything else? How do you think they could have helped him to manage the in terms of the wellness and what he was going through, the heavy workload and the insomnia and anxiety? How would they have known?
Sorry, I was reading Kamisha's comment and so didn't quite hear what you said.
Okay,
Kamisha's comment was that there were no awareness campaigns, which defeats the purpose of the EAP. That was her comment.
yes, yes. Oh, yes, I'm looking at it now. Oh, train managers, okay, early signs. Let me put this over here. Yes, I can see it. Yes, I agree. So, it clearly they're not aware of what the staff is going through in terms of the work pressures across the teams. And it also seemed as if Jermaine never had a voice to let them to share with them what was happening.
They may not also have a disciplinary policy in terms of how they treated the frequent mistakes and interactions.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yes. And so I guess that's where even the managers come now, for them to bring the concerns to HR before these disciplinary measures are taken. I believe that's what you're saying. The second question is, what barriers might prevent employees from accessing mental health resources even when they exist?
Well, as you
Yes.
said, the lack of the awareness campaign, but
Mm,
also the attitude of the managers, because instead of a confidential meeting, you're putting things in writing for the gentleman's file. that
Mm,
even your processes are wrong. So there's that
yes,
as well.
as well. And maybe even Jermaine maybe felt fearful of being seen as weak, or that he can't manage in this competitive large telecommunication company. What about confidentiality? Did you say that just now?
It's in the chat.
Okay. Oh, lack of confidence. Yes. Oh, yes. Fear of victimization. Yes, Kamisha, I'm seeing that. Thank you. Yes. Speaking up, because if you talk up, it's going to impact your promotion, and you may even lose your job. And again, how do you see norms playing, cultural norms? You see anything about cultural norms playing in this scenario? The fact that Jermaine said nothing, maybe he could be thinking that, it's my business, my struggles are my own. It should be kept private.
I'm also thinking the thing about not making wise decisions. We don't have this data here, but he has heavy workload, ongoing restructuring at the company, and personal financial pressures. The thing is, he may have exaggerated the role of the personal financial pressures in his thing, which is what may have led him to say it's not the company's problem, it is my problem. So there could be that as well. His decision making or his thinking through the issue may not have been clear. It may not be realistic. And so
Yeah.
he could have used help even to just sort out exactly what is wrong. That might have been something there.
Yes, that too. Yes. Yes, that too. How my
And this thing
training
about and
managed.
this
Oh,
thing
go ahead.
about the HR only becoming involved when formally reported issues and the lack of the managers not being trained to spot the signs, and there are no check-ins to remind staff about the EAP. All of that, might be the company striving to save money. They have it on paper because it's a large telecommunications company. It probably is that they are, some ISO 9000 standards, so they can tick a box and say that they
Right.
have it. But these things cost money, and as you've been saying, put your money where your mouth is. They
Yes.
haven't done that, so they have it, but they haven't. They're not willing to actually spend, because if you're going to send him to a psychologist, if you're going to send him to somebody professional, you have to pay that person. So they might not want to do that. So they just have it on paper and they're happy to leave it
Yeah,
there.
I'll leave it there. Definitely. Definitely. How might training managers to recognize early signs of distress change outcomes in cases like this one?
The thing is that it may have resulted in him leaving anyway, but at least we would be more confident as outsiders looking at it, and as other employees looking at it. We would have been more competent that him leaving was in his best interest, not in the best interest of the organization. And that sort of thing redounds to the trust that the rest of us would feel for this organization. Because you remember, with all of these things, you do have survivors. Other people are watching, and
Yes.
other people are seeing how the organization has reacted. Other people are watching that manager chew him out publicly or write something, put something on. Other people are watching all of that.
Exactly. And so then it speaks to how does the manager give that support, that timely support that is necessary in a case like this? Notice the fatigue, notice the mistakes, and really, look and say, okay, so this is really not how this person is normally. Let me have a conversation. Let me see what is happening. And I think that kind of a communication is necessary in order to prevent the frustration that the staff is clearly going through, be it even his own thing with the personal and financial pressure, but to be seen and to really have a space to talk and say, look, this is my issue. I am overworked. How can we adjust this? Is there perhaps a flexible schedule that I can get before the burnout takes place? Maybe it means that, he could get some time off. I don't know. Yeah.
The other thing I'm concerned about is something we spoke about earlier, that the type of job that somebody is in may add another shade to this thing. And he's a customer service person, which means that he's dealing directly with the company's clients. So
Yes.
he's not even around the back. So he is dealing with the internal as well as the external clients, and that they need to be concerned about the kind of service that their clients were receiving. And it is obvious that they saw bottom line only. If they're just, they're seeing bottom line only. And in organizations that is very short term. That is not long-term strategic thinking at all. So they're actually damaging their brand, whether they know it or not. Not
Right.
Germain. Germain is making mistakes, but their actions are damaging the brand even more than his mistakes are.
And even as you spoke, it made me wonder that sometimes because of, oh, you're only doing customer service, and so your spot can be filled quickly. So the value that is placed on that particular role is not so important because you can easily find somebody to fill that position. And so the extent that you would go in order to ensure that attention is paid to that person is minimal than if it were somebody like, somebody who is in accounting or the finance side of it. It would be different if you get what I'm saying. So he's dispensable. You can fill that capacity with anybody else who comes in. And so you're not such an investment. And I don't know. That's what just came to me. And I wondered.
Yes, that is very likely. Jobs where people deal with people are not seen in the same light as if you're dealing with the money, the organization's money,
Right.
and that sort of
Yeah,
thing. Those resources are,
exactly. Yeah. In a Jamaican workplace context, what cultural or organizational factors may make it harder for employees to talk about mental health?
one of the things that I'm looking at right away is Jermaine is looking for another job. He is unlikely to get a recommendation that will help him, or he's unlikely to even ask for one.
Yeah.
So he has a problem there because
Mhm.
going to the next company, they're going to want to know why he left the last one.
Right.
And,
Yes.
that sort of thing. Jamaica
Mm.
is small. So even if he didn't put, and I know I have done it, I know
Mhm.
somebody from the organization where the person worked, and those are not the names on the thing. And I'll even just call the person I know and say, what do you think? I've done
Mhm.
that.
Mhm. Yes. Yes. Wow. So that is one element it does it stymie or your next job opportunity. Um and also there is perhaps maybe that expectation that you stay in it and then you endure the stress silently. You just don't complain. It's a job. What are you complaining about? Um There's a fear of perhaps judgment. Kamisha says culturally persons may hesitate to open up about mental health for fear of being seen as mad. Yes, definitely. Definitely. I had it on one of the slides that said that we have it in 3 stages. We see people as, you go to you seek therapy, you talk to somebody, you on medication, but if you have to go to a hospital to get any treatment, then you are mad. You are mad. So our thinking needs to shift.
But sorry, one other thing too, you realize that Jermaine is not a customer service rep, he's a customer service supervisor. So he is actually on the ladder of people who ought to have been trained to know about the EAP and all of that. He's not quite middle management, but he's not really at the bottom of the totem pole either. So that also speaks volumes because
Yes.
he ought to they ought to have been looking after him. He's one of the supervisors, which also says that they valued him before.
But you alluded to the point before, Olivine, that if the company's bottom line is just
The bottom
making
line.
profit, yeah, the bottom line, right? If the company's intention is just to make money, hiding, or those are my words, not being open with the EAP means then that less persons are going to come to take advantage of this thing that, it costs the company, employee assistance program. So the less people know about it, the less people will apply for it. And the less people that apply means that there's just more that we have to expend for staff for this facility. Does that make sense?
Doc?
Hello?
Yes, that makes lots of sense because I'm looking at something now where to encourage persons to access the EAP, we have to put some special things in place at work as it relates to activities about wellness and mental health and for all the communications that we do, whether we have a medical team that go on the ground, won't go into too much of a detail, but in
Right.
every contact and link, it's the EAP and persons know about the EAP and how to access it. So all staff members, all how much hundreds of them, they are aware of it now. What we found out was that they weren't accessing the EAP. So we had to now do a part B to make that
Oh,
happen. And
yes.
even if it means a little hand holding, because it's not only the individual, because you could be stressed as a staff because of your spouse or your
Yes.
children, or there's some things happening, and the EAP arrangement facilitates your family members as well, at least the arrangement that
Yes.
I know of, which is pretty good.
Yes.
So if we are not promoting it, indeed, it will really get lost quickly.
Yes.
So I agree
Thank you
with
for
you.
that. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. There's also the culture in the organization which may make persons reluctant to talk openly to the supervisor or the HR person due to the power distance. So maybe that was the case with Jermaine. And lack of understanding for really what is happening with him about conditions like anxiety or burnout. So it's important for the HR professional to really understand what persons are up against, what are some of the things that prevail um, among the workforce. And Oh, one of the things I wanted to say is that there's also the focus on discipline over support. And what we find is that traditional management style approaches, they prioritize that rule enforcement over the employee well-being. It's about the rule, the rule, the rule, the rule. You follow the rules. And really and truly, I like to say that behavior makes sense in context. So if we spend time understanding the context of the behavior, then maybe we won't need to have to enforce the discipline, because then we know what is going on, and we can cauterize the situation before it gets extreme.
True. And also the context, how we view leadership in this country. Jermaine is a supervisor, he has a team, and culturally, you being the leader, you're meant to be the strong person.
Yes.
So you
Yes.
shouldn't be the one asking for help if you're the leader.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yes. Yeah. And so that is what is like, the strong back, the expectation that you are leading. You don't need, you need to just endure this situation and don't complain. Just do what you have to do, and step up to the plate when you're the supervisor. Do what needs to be done. So, as we are winding down, it's a call to action. It says every HR professional is also a mental health advocate. And the call to action means that you equip yourself with tools. You get your training, you stay updated on mental health legislation, on workplace best practices. Learn how to identify the signs of distress and the changes that you see in your staff, in punctuality, in the quality of their work or their mood. Partner with community resources. And, it's no organization, I believe, can address mental health alone. But what can be done is that you leverage the partnership with other entities in order to increase the impact. So, for example, an organization can partner with the Ministry of Health and Wellness and for these wellness workshops and the seminars that I spoke about, and maybe collaborate with private counseling centers to offer subsidized therapy. I think of places like Choose Life International, Family Life Ministries that does give therapy. There are different counseling, like what Olivine spoke about, that there's a counseling unit at UE that provides counseling for that organization. In rural parishes, persons can connect with community-based organizations that can deliver services employees can access outside of work. So that's what the community partnership will look like. Lead a change at policy and practice level. And it means that you can influence the organizational structure and norms so that mental health becomes a sustained priority. Influence the organizational structure and norms so that mental health becomes a sustained priority. You update your HR policies to include mental health leave and flexible working arrangements. It may be that you create a wellness committee where you have different sets of representatives on that committee, and you embed mental health awareness into leadership training so that it is not just an HR issue. And, finally, what I want to say is that consider your values as you enter your role as an HRD professionals. Sometimes when we arrive at the table where our voices need to be heard, It might be tempting to be silent and unwilling or fearful to advocate for those whom we represent. It is important to know and remember your why. In those instances of pushback from upper management, it is your why that will empower you to be resolute and strident in breaking down the walls of the ineffective mental health culture and establishing more intentional, proactive, and efficient ones. And as I started out, I said life is never made unbearable by circumstances, but only by the lack of meaning and purpose. I believe that as HR professionals, you can bring meaning and purpose to the lives of your staff and to those in your organization. Any questions? You have questions, I might have answers. No questions? Good, thank you.
All right. All right. So, Doc, it just remains for me to thank you very, very much for having come here today to speak with us about the importance of mental health and our role as HR professionals to be the ones pushing this in our organizations. And um, I learned a lot today. I found it fascinating in the extreme. And I feel sure that I spoke. The audience is a little small, but I think that this because of the hours. This is in the work day. And even people who were here, I know for sure some of them were kind of sneaking off from work. So, but we've recorded it so that they can see it on Caribbean HRD TV. So this information will get out to the members of our alumni and our current students. And who knows, the ones who are just starting the program may actually hear something from me on the exam paper that refers to this. So I will see to it that the class watches this video because I really do want them to get this message. So thanks a lot, and thank you to the persons who came here today. Several people came and left. I thank them because I'm sure they did their best. They did their best in terms of what they could do. I saw people who were here, people from cohort 3 and that sort of thing. So our alumni have been dropping in to listen to what you've had to say. I'm reminding everybody that we are again on for 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. We'll be looking at employee engagement at that time. And later on, we'll be looking at integrating persons with disabilities into our workforce. And then we'll be looking at writing HR policy. I urge you not to miss any of those presentations because in everything that we're doing, we can add value to the organization if we have that information in our belt. So rest well. Today has been a long day. We started at 10 o'clock this morning. It's been a long day, but for me, very enjoyable, very informative. And I'll be taking some of these recommendations on board. So walk good, everybody. And a million thanks again to Dr. Duhaney.
Thank you for having me. Take care, everybody.